Uh, Thank you for extending the warm welcome to all of us, and thank you for having me with you. I consider this a great opportunity to share my perspective with you. And I have been given this topic. The topic was not mine, but it was given to me. It is isolated and failing Pakistan, a strategic opportunity for peace in Kashmir. I will, because the time is short, about 15 minutes, I would like to divide my lecture into three parts. The first part will pertain to my own view of Pakistan. Then in the next section, I will focus on Pakistan and Kashmir. And in the third section, I will try to dwell on the way out. Friends, I have been studying Pakistan for last about 35 years, if not more. And the more I read about Pakistan, the more I get confused about what kind of a state it wants to be. In fact, when I started looking at Pakistan in 1987-88, when I did my MPhil, I was conducting research on communal riots in India and Pakistan's perspective about it. And at that point of time, it was those were not the days of internet, and we had to really struggle to get Pakistani materials. And through friends from across the border, and also through the generous devotion of time by one Mr. Rajendra Sarin, if you know him, we could get some access to Pakistani materials. And what I saw there was this, that whenever a communal riot would occur, Pakistani commentators would come out and say, thank God that we were separated. Otherwise, today we would have had to suffer the same fate as our co-religionists in India. So the point I'm making is, I found out that Pakistan, even if it was not created in the name of Islam, but for the Muslims of the subcontinent, that was the crying, slogan given by Muslim League leaders. It had become an Islamic Pakistan. Basically, the thrust was on Islam and nothing else. And when I started studying deeper into the political dynamics of Pakistan, I found out a very interesting, very ugly truth. The ugly truth was this, that Pakistan, after emphasizing on Islam, had become divided. A country which has had about 99% Muslim population was actually being divided in the name of Islam. This was interesting. If you look at the state of affairs ever since 1947, when Pakistan was founded, the first excommunication took place in the name of Islam of the Ahmadiyas. And as soon as the Ahmadiyas went out, you see, when the anti-Ahmadiyya movement in Pakistan started in 1950s, in 1949-50 to be exact, where Sunni and Shia sects, Shias are also divided into several sects, Sunnis are also divided into several sects. All the sects came together to excommunicate the Ahmadiyyas. 10 years later, about 1960, the Shias were excommunicated. The majority Sunni population of Pakistan, who constitute about 78 to 80% of the population, they started saying that Shias are not Muslims. And when after 1979, after Zia-ul-Haq came into office, an interesting thing happened. Zia-ul-Haq wanted to impose a radical Islamic version on the state of Pakistan. The outcome was very interesting. The Shias came down to Rawalpindi and they started demonstrating in front of the GHQ, and they demanded withdrawal of all these Islamic injunctions. They said that this is Sunni Islamic injunctions which we are not going to be part of. So the Shias walked a different line altogether, and the Sunni and Shia conflict after that intensified. Zia-ul-Haq, interestingly, quite many people say that Zia-ul-Haq was an Islamist general, But if you look at his career, track record, he came to office in 1977. By 1979, his Islamic agenda had gone bust. He was not emphasizing on Islam after that. He used Islam to come to power, and after that he forgot about it. In fact, if you look at it closely, Bhutto, who was secular, liberal, he was the one who initiated Islamization in Pakistan. This is my take. And because he was the one who symbolically picked on Islamic symbols, and he tried to say that I am also Islamic. So the focus on Islam divided them into several sects. And what was interesting, after 1979, another interesting division took place. After 79, you find a Wahhabization of the Deobandi thinking in Pakistan. In fact, if you know, Sunnis are also divided into several sects. Some say that we are Ahl Hadith, some say we are Ahl Sunnah, then some say we are Ahl Quran, and there are also differences amongst Ahl Hadith. Because if you look at Pakistan, Lashkar-e-Taiba is Ahl Hadith, and Jamaatul Ahl Hadith is also Ahl Hadith. But they are two different entities. While Lashkar-e-Taiba says we should not participate in elections, Jamaatul Ahl Hadith is kosher with elections. So there are too many sects and with too many Islamic outlooks. So Zia-ul-Haq found out, to his utter disbelief, when he wanted Pakistan to become an Islamic state, which version of Islam he should abide by. If he is talking about one, all other sects are weeded out. I'm tempted to go back to Munir Commission report, which was set up in the wake of Ahmadiyya riots, anti-Ahmadiyya riots. Munir Committee report is a must read for people dealing with Pakistan. Munir Commission report states, very interestingly, he said he interviewed about 100 odd top ulama of Pakistan, the mullahs. When they came in, Munir had to ask him one question. According to you, who is a good Muslim? And all these people, they gave their definitions. So Munir Sahab concludes that if I were to abide by, if I were to go by the version of one mullah, all other mullahs were non-Muslims. So that is the diversity that is there within Islam. And that is what is dividing Pakistan now. In fact, when the Afghan war came about, Afghan Jihad came about in 1979 and went on for 10 years, 10 long years, when even United States also adopted Islamic radicalism to, defeat the Soviet Union, another interesting thing happened. The Deobandi thinking, all these sects in Pakistan, they got radicalized. Because all of them started asserting that our version of Islam is the version of Islam. So in that process, you find the Deobandis and the Barelvis, they also started fighting amongst themselves. In one incident in 2006, if you remember, all the Barelvi leaders, all 40 top Barelvi leaders were taken out by a single suicide bomber on the occasion of, guess what? On the occasion of the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. This is what Pakistan has become. When they were celebrating the birthday of Muhammad in Karachi, one lone bomber went up to the stage and exploded himself, killing all the 40 top Barelvi leaders. So it has come to that extent that it is a war of all against all. If I go a little further, go beyond the Islamic thing, I would say, if you look at the political scenario, if you look at the social scenario, Pakistan is also pretty much divided. From 1949, when army was called upon to stain the anti-Ahmadiyya riots, from that day till about 2008-9, you found the army dominating the political scenario. After 48, army had to share power with democratic dispensation, but army was the dominant force. Actually, Pakistan is a country which is held together by force, not the will of the people. And that force comes from the barrel of the gun. The army keeps Pakistan together more than any other many other entities in Pakistan. So what has happened, this constant tension, civil military tension, has also weakened the fabric of the state. And what has happened in the meanwhile is a very interesting thing. In 2002, when Musharraf started banning the jihadi organizations which were targeting India and Afghanistan, the jihadi organizations turned against Musharraf. He was attacked thrice. One of them was very deadly, but he survived. And after that, he started clamping down on them. But Musharraf later on admitted that, I had slowed down the tap, I had not switched it off. He still used terror as an instrument to a certain extent. But when Musharraf realized that it is posing a grave threat to his own life, he started clamping down on them. What happened afterwards is very, very interesting, and I want you all to know about it. It so happened that sections from amongst these units, like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, Harkatul Mujahideen, Harkatul Islam, जो कहते थे, all these, and HUJ, Harkatul Jihad-e-Islami, all these groups, had members who differed with Musharraf. They were all run by the Pakistani army, as you know. But sections from these units, they migrated to the tribal areas and they settled down there. They are the ones who have come out with this new outfit called Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has become an existential threat to Pakistani state. Even if Taliban has come to power in Afghanistan, and people say that Taliban is very, very open to the idea of reconciliation with Pakistan, and in fact they were eating out of the hands of Pakistan army, they have not been also able to control the TTP. In fact, after Taliban came to power in Afghanistan on 15th of August 2021, the TTP has upscaled its activities. And what is TTP saying? The TTP is saying that Pakistan was founded in the name of Islam, but this army is anything but Islamic. We have to displace this army. So there is a constant confrontation going on between the Pakistan army and the TTP in Balochistan and the tribal areas. And Pakistani army is deeply troubled about it, because they have not been able to control them as much as they want to do it. In fact, if you remember, on 16th of December 2014, they attacked an army public school and killed about 140 odd students there. And they justified it by saying that they were the children of the army officers, and the army officers are the enemies of Pakistani state, and we have to get rid of these guys. And one of the TTP commanders who was killed in a drone attack by the Americans in 2016, 2013, Baitullah Mahsud, he had an interesting take on Pakistan and Kashmir. In one of his rarest of rare interviews to the media, I think a few months before he was killed, he was asked by a BBC correspondent, BBC Urdu correspondent, as to what is your take on Kashmir. This is very interesting, I want to share with you. He said, I will tell you an interesting experience that I had during my youth. He said, when I was about 17, 18, the ISI recruited me, sent me to Kashmir. And we were all told that, Kashmir is a place where the Muslims are being tortured, Muslims are not being allowed to practice their religion. I went there as a field commander, and I found out that in the mosques in the valley, the Muslims are going and praying, and the Indian soldiers are providing them security. Then he said, I was confused. I said, all this while, the Pakistani ISI was feeding wrong things into our heads. People are free to go to their mosques and practice their religion. So this is a misnomer. And I realized that in Pakistan, it is dangerous to go to the mosques to offer your Jummah prayers. Then and there I decided that first of all I have to go back to Pakistan and convert Pakistan to Islam. Then come back and see what I can do in Kashmir. This is what Baitullah Mahsud said. So these are the people who have now come together. I would urge you, I don't know whether you have it, but I have a copy of it before it was banned. People were taken out by the Americans. I think I had said it with you, General. that's about Azadi Ka Fareb. So this group is saying that in the name of independence and formation of a state in the name of Islam, we have been misguided. There is no Azadi that is there in Pakistan. We can only be Azad if there will be a perfect Islamic rule in Pakistan. And this army, which is having Hindus and the Shias and even Christians as members in Pakistan, they can never be Islamic. So this is there. In fact, during Musharraf period, he had brought in some Hindus and some Christians into the army. Shias were always there. So they are saying that, this is not the army that we want. So Pakistan is, as I tell you, Pakistan is a country divided against itself. It is held together by force, but if you look closely at it, it's not going to survive, if they continue in this suicidal mission. I think they are on a suicidal mission because they are not using, they are not stopping the use of terror as an instrument of their state policy. So this is what I had to say about Pakistan. Let us come to Kashmir. I have several anecdotes to share about Kashmir from my experience. Like I have had the privilege to interact with many people in the establishment of Pakistan and also people who are in politics and all. But they all tell me uniformly that Kashmir is just an excuse. We are not so emotionally attached to Kashmir that it is made out to be. You take out the Kashmir from Pakistani scheme of things, the army will crumble like a pack of cards. Because the threat of India emanates from the issue of Kashmir. That we will try to take on Kashmir and India will always attack us. While they all know that all the 3.5 wars that they have fought with India, they know that all these wars were thrust on India by Pakistan. All of them say this. None of the wars were started by India, including the 1971 war, because they were the ones who attacked us first. So they tell us that अरे अशोक क्या सोच रहे हो, ये कश्मीर जो है ना, ये मुद्दा है जो आर्मी को खासकर पावर आर्किटेक्चर में और स्ट्रांगली उसको एंट्रेंस करने के लिए. Do you think they are interested in resolving Kashmir? And one of the first instance they give us is their mindless obsession about United Nations resolutions. They would tell us that, you see, all of us know that United Nations resolutions are dead. Because things have happened in such a way and so much water has flown down the Jhelum and Chenab and Beas that it is difficult to organize a plebiscite the way it was envisaged in 1948. But mindlessly Pakistan is harping on that. And they also point to another interesting reminder that in 1997 when India and Pakistan agreed to talk about Kashmir, Pakistan was obsessed with Kashmir alone. They were not talking about other issues at all. They were saying that the only issue that we should talk about it was Kashmir. And Musharraf rejected the proposal of Nawaz Sharif to talk with India with a composite framework because he felt that in this kind of a dialogic structure, Kashmir loses its relevance. But interestingly, after 2001, 9/11, Musharraf came back to composite dialogue. And we had a dialogue between 2004 and 2007, which I consider the most interesting dialogue that we have ever had with Pakistan. And during that time, I will give you an anecdote. In 2006, we had a poll done, opinion poll in India and Pakistan. And in Pakistan, we asked the people, do you think India and Pakistan should bury their hatchet, should come together, in spite of the fact that Kashmir is not resolved according to Pakistan's wishes? ये हम जितने वो पाकिस्तान में बड़े बड़े जो सिटीज़ थे वहाँ पे जाके लोगों से कोई प्रश्न पूछे, ये questions we asked, and the answer was revealing. About 95% of the Pakistanis told us that we should be friends in spite of the Kashmir issue. This is what the popular mood is. You will be surprised to know that based on this survey, in 2009, after 26/11, an opinion poll was conducted by Gallup polls, and they asked a similar question. And during that time, between 2000 and 2009, after Musharraf went back, the media was in the control of the Pakistan army, and a lot of anti-India stuff was being generated in Pakistan. Even then, about 54% of the people said that, whether Kashmir is resolved or not, India and Pakistan should be friends. The larger point that I'm making is, in spite of the fact that the popular opinion in Pakistan remains in favor of India-Pakistan harmony, India-Pakistan reconciliation, it is the political elite and the power elite, not so much political elite, but the political elite has also learned its lessons. The army of Pakistan is mindlessly focused on Kashmir and the United Nations resolutions, just to ensure that the dialogue between India and Pakistan doesn't take place. And that is the reason why we have all this dissension here. And they would not mind the Kashmiri youth getting killed, over and over again throughout the next decade, to ensure that they remain firmly entrenched in power in GHQ in Islamabad. And that is what should convince you about the attitude, about the intentions of Pakistani state, which has become suicidal. I had a lot more to say, but maybe in the discussion session we can revisit some of the points that I made. Thank you.